If anything, should we be taken out of this drama that is unfolding about people who belong to one party 4 years ago told us to move to another party, and the same people are moving back to that party? And one of the things I've even insisted on saying is that I would like, and with due respect to everybody and everybody's sensibilities, that I don't want to even be naming the names of these parties, because I think we are giving them too much attention and too much prominence. I even think that the journalist community, the media, is giving too much attention to this. What we should be doing is using it as an opportunity to galvanize Nigerians towards the alternatives that exist and towards the real value that should come out of democratic process. What we are focused on now a lot is on the drama and the theatrics, like I said, and it's not helping us, and we need to really get to the real value we can extract from the political terrain in Nigeria and the democratic process.
Okay, so for you, you're even looking at the people and looking at the response or the reaction of the people to
exactly this. Yes, that's for me is that when people, they say when the elephants fight, the grass suffers. So what is the grass doing? Is the grass just suffering? We are suffering and smiling in typical Nigerian style, or are we suffering and are we are we going to be vigilant about what we are going to do as a result of the two elephants fighting, and then we take a position and then we can move forward and get some real value. So that's where I would like us to really focus on as a people, as a community, in every community that we have in the FCT and everywhere in Nigeria. The issues should be, so now, if this is what is happening, what are we going to do about it? And what positive actions and value can we get out of this democratic process that is evolving?
Okay, but so what we're looking at is, the defections don't necessarily translate to a better way of life or better leadership. Maybe that's what some people think, that, so with the defections that are on, probably things are going to get better, Nigeria is going to move forward, and, we'll have better leadership.
Well, but when you say, and if that is where the mindset of certain people are, I would like to set them straight and do it very quickly. Who is defecting from where to where? Is it not the same people so how can you expect a change? What is going to change? I don't see where the change, where the expectation comes from. So for me, it's not a rational expectation. So like I said at the beginning, somebody was in A, he moved to B, and I'm not going to call names, and B has decided he's moving back to A, and then...
Or moving elsewhere.
Yeah, or moving elsewhere, and then you say because of that. But it's the same B now. It's the same people. So do people change just because they wear a different, because they wear a different cloth? Does that necessarily mean that just because you change the pin on your tie pin or your brooch, does that mean you are a different person? And this is reality. So it's the same people moving around. So we can only expect the same type of behavior to continue.
But are they not moving with ideologies?
But they are not, Ben. That's the point. So what is the underlying ideology? There is none. All we hear about is power. It's a power grab. It's all about power. We don't hear about ideology from these sets of people. What is the ideology? Nigerian politics and Nigerian politicians are bereft of ideology. But there are only few people who really have ideology. The rest and most of what we are talking A and B, and like I said, I'm not mentioning their names, is that they don't. The only ideology they have is to get into power. 3.5 years ago, they told us that they needed to move out of A or B so that they will get to A and grab power. They promised us many things that have not been delivered, isn't it? And now they are moving back to B or to A, and I think I'm mixing it up now, but you will help me.
It's all right.
But the point is this, same people, bereft of ideology, just every opportunity of 4 years is a chance to get power. Use power for what? So it brings the question, Ben and Iya, what is the purpose of political power? Is it just to have office? One day I was listening on a radio program, another radio station, I won't mention names, and a lady came and said, does she feel so bad that after being running for Senate under a party and she lost, she was promised by the leadership of that party that they would give her ministerial appointment? Do you know the question she was answering here? The question was, what is your biggest disappointment as a politician? And that was her answer. So is the purpose, Ben, of power just so that you can get a ministerial appointment or become executive secretary of a government parastatal? Of course not. The purpose of power and politics is for community mobilization, it's for social transformation. And that is the ideology that we need to start putting forth. And until we start to look and see and identify and work with leaders, political leaders who have this as their clear mandate, then moving from one party to another is not going to solve Nigeria's problems.
But how aware are we as a people of this? I think that's a big issue.
Yeah, and here you spot on. One of the things I've realized about Nigerians or even leaders, and this has nothing to do with politics, this is me as a business person, as a banker, as an educator, in everything I've done. I've observed two things, and I hope I will use the right words on air so that I don't pass the wrong message. I've observed two things about Nigerian leaders. Generally speaking, we make two mistakes. One, we assume that people who are educated are knowledgeable. I hope you get that first. That's the first fallacy, that people who are educated are knowledgeable. The second fallacy is that people who are not educated, and this way I have to be very careful, are too dumb to understand anything. So we say to ourselves that the educated people, they know what to do, and the people who are not educated, there's no need talking to them, Abby, because they won't get it. So guess what we do as leaders? We don't talk at all. We create no awareness. We don't educate people, and that's why we're in the mess we are in.
We will take a break to bring you the headlines right now. And right after that, we will continue. If you have questions, if you have comments, join us via WhatsApp, via Facebook.com/Nigeria Info Abuja. We're actually live on Facebook. You can tweet at Nigeria Info ABJ or simply send a text to 32351. We'll be back after the headlines.
Involved, let's get involved, let's get involved, involved.
Headline News, Nigeria Info. Headline News.
In the headlines, President Buhari to embark on 10-day holiday in London. Oshomole calls for Saraki's resignation. Court orders arrest of INEC chairman Mahmood Yakubu. Sokoto State Governor Aminu Tamwell defects to PDP from APC. Work begins on Lagos Rail Standard Gauge. The Standards Organization of Nigeria has commenced intensive nationwide evacuation of unfortified food products. Government crackdown in Zimbabwe after Monday's elections prompt international calls for restraint. Investigators find the flight recorders from an Aero-Mexico flight which crashed in Mexico's northern Durango state on Tuesday. New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern returns to work after spending 6 weeks away on maternity leave. An Illinois state representative has resigned following allegations he used photos of his ex-girlfriend to lure men into graphic conversations of a sexual nature. Almost every species of lemur, wide-eyed primate unique to Madagascar under threat of extinction. And publisher Conde Nast has confirmed that Dame Anna Wintour is to indefinitely remain as Vogue's editor-in-chief. That headline news on 95.1 Nigeria Info. Don't forget, you can always send us eyewitness reports as news breaks in your area. Send a report to eyewitness at coolazobiainfo.com. I am Mitoge Moore, edit.
Headline News, Nigeria Info. Headline News.
Feel the culture. Feel the rhythm.
Asaba 2018, champions on Ninja.
Experience the excitement of 5 days of incredible performances by Africa's finest athletes. Welcome to the Africa Senior Athletics Championship Asaba 2018.
For special effect, give me one. Let's see, look at Barry. Sheye Ogunlewe. Casta Semania.
Asaba 2018, champions on the Niger.
This event is brought to you by the Delta State Government and sponsored by GAC Moto, Zenith Bank, Rightforce Limited, Ericsson, Lantor, Gree, and Quasar Free Sports as official broadcast partners.
95.1
Nigeria Info. I'm listening.
Now, Midday Dialogue.
With Inya and Benjamin.
All right, thank you for staying tuned in. 27 minutes to the top of the hour, and Omagbitse Barrow still in the studio with us, taking a look at the season of defections and decamping and how that translates to better leadership.
Yes, and he's been answering questions, especially as to what we have become or what we turn into when we change from where we were, as in Party A to
Party B.
Party B.
Or B to A, whichever way. Okay, so thanks to everyone who's joining us on Facebook Live. Afolabi Abiodun is watching from Oshogbo. He says the speaker has said it all. Those so-called leaders have just being in power syndrome. That's how he put it. And Olaoluwa Joshua Joseph says, the person who has ideology will not even win the family election. So that's why, and I think that's important, isn't it?
And very important, because what's happening is that even people are so cynical about how bad things are, that when you even come out and say that you want to do things differently, they are cynical about the possibility that doing things differently will actually create a result. So guess what they do? They decide to go with the establishment, or they decide to sit at home and do nothing.
Yeah, but there's something you said, and I probably want you to react, to look at it again.
Yes.
The issue of the woman politician who was disappointed because she was not given an appointment. Yeah, but if political parties make promises, should they not fulfill them?
Oh, sure. I mean, but I'm just concerned that, you see, it's like saying that...
but that was the point for her.
Yeah, is that the point? Should that be the reason why you are involved in... So is that the promise you should be making? I mean, I remember a story that Bill Clinton told about how somebody he was trying to pass a bill, some health bill those days. He called, there was one vote required in the Congress, and he called, a lady said, "Oh, the problem, Mr. President." He says, "What do you want?" And the lady says, "Mr. President," the congresswoman, and she said, "Oh, I would like some infrastructure that is causing people to be sick in my village, to be put down, and the company to be fined, and blah, blah, blah." When she finished, Bill Clinton says, he asked her, "Is that all?" She said, "Yes, that's all." He said, "Because people always ask me for cars and for houses and for jobs for their girlfriends.
Wow.
You are asking me to do something for your people. Is that all?" So Ben, that's my point, that we've got to raise the bar on what the expectation is. If I am doing this just because I want to be famous, so that then they will sort me out with an executive director position, then that's a waste. And that's an insult to the Nigerian people. That politicians should understand that what I said, social mobilization, galvanizing the people, transforming society is much more important than position or power. Everybody remembers Mahatma Gandhi. Right. And they say, sometimes I trick people, Ben, and I say, Mahatma Gandhi was the Prime Minister of India. Everybody says, yeah. No. I say, you're wrong. He had no title. No. He was just a great guy who changed the world. So we need to get to that point. And that's why I was disappointed with the lady who said what she said.
Well, Martha Ulehwande says, no interest for the common man or the community they represent. It's just to hold on to power and be worshipped or respected as they deem fit. Yeah. Fine. Yeah, we know all this. But then let's go back to that point of knowledge and education, right? The point you were making before we ran off on that break on, what some people think, okay, those who are not who don't have education are dumb, or those who have education are knowledgeable.
They know everything.
Exactly.
Yes.
How can we get past it?
Well, it's part of what I said. So imagine if forward-thinking politicians decide to start to invest heavily in educating the electorate, in creating the awareness, in fueling the desire, in providing them with the knowledge, with the ability, and reinforcing it through their own utterances, their own behaviors, and their own style of leadership. I've just shared with you a framework that we call ADKA, that if you want people to change, you must have these 5 elements. You must invest in awareness. You must fuel desire. You must give people knowledge. You must empower them so that they are able to change. And that you must set the right example of yourself so that is a reinforcement for that change to happen. Until our political leaders start to think about the change that we want to see in society along these lines, nothing is going to change. All that is going to change is that a new set of people will ascend into power, and they will continue to rape and plunder Nigeria using their power.
Igalaga Gabriel has spoken something, but he's from Budapest. He says tribalism can render a leader ineffective, cancelling out every previous accolades the person may have accumulated in the past. Tribalism blinds a ruler, and that's a big problem.
Oh,
for
yes.
us. Ethnicity, tribalism,
Exactly.
religion. These are all things that hurdles really that we need to cross. Can we get past it?
Yeah.
Because people seem to bring this up all the time.
Because that is what the people who want to continue to manipulate us want to continue to bring up. So those of us who know better should bring up the real issues. So, for example, you hear politicians talking about how, I have looked at the people of this place, I've looked at this part of the country, these are their issues. Look, I said to them, all the issues are the same in Nigeria. Is there anywhere that there's good road? Is there anywhere that there's good education, that schools are not tattered and without roofs and without windows? The problems of Nigeria are not geopolitical, they are not ethnic, they are the same. Nigeria is the same everywhere, it's the same Nigeria. So the problem is that this is the yarn that they spin to distract us. So when instead of
spinning,
they spin a yarn to distract us.
I can't remember the last time I heard that, Bisha.
Well, I'm from the G-Funk era,
right?
And they spin these yarns and they just distract us. And it is, it is the person, unfortunately, in the world. You are broadcasters. It is the person who has the loudest noise, who makes the loudest noise that people hear. So we have to. So the gentleman who said, even your family members, you have to get your family members, you have to sound it into their ears. You have to speak to their consciences that, cannot be the same. You cannot continue doing the same thing over and over again, ignoring the process. People people will not go and get PVC, because they say the wala is too much. I've said to people that, why don't you get a picnic? Make it into a picnic. Go and sit down in area 1 under the trees there. They are well shaded. Bring your food, carry your drinks, and sit there and spend your whole day. Get leave from your office. You take leave to go and do all sorts of things with your lives. This is probably the most important thing that Nigerians have to do in their lives. And 2019 is the year of the Renaissance. This is, in my mind, this is almost like, Ben, this is the last shot we have. If we miss it now with all the baggage of military rule, with the years of civilian despondency that we have seen, and all that nonsense, if we can't get it now, I don't know. Which generation are we waiting for? People younger than... And it's not enough. I mean, and I've said this many times, because if the political parties, if we don't go in, change the ideology, and change the internal democratic system of these parties, what will happen? You will have your PVC, and on election day, you would see that the candidates are suboptimal, and you will sleep at home. And so it means that even if you have a PVC, it's still not enough, because we have refused to get into political process. And we say, politics is dirty. Politics is full of banditry. But it is so because it is dirty people and bandits that are there. So I find it funny when people say politics is dirty. And then they look at politicians in these various parties. So what you're exactly saying is that they are dirty, and you are happy to leave it to them. Kwame Nkrumah said, seek ye first the political kingdom, and everything will be added to you. What was he saying? That until societies and individuals understand that they have to grab political power, and good people have to intervene in politics, that we will continue to have the mess that we have in Nigeria.
Yeah, but how would you react to Aisha Osori's book titled Love Does Not Win Elections?
Here's what I would say. You cannot transform a society or a system by doing the exact same thing that the old establishment people did. You have to truly be a break from the norm. So, for example, being a member of an establishment party is you have already shot yourself in the foot, as far as I'm concerned. How are you going to change that? So, reading that book and some of the lessons to take away from it is, first of all, you are in the wrong place. Because the internal democracy, and it speaks to what I'm just saying, the internal democracy is the end of that book, isn't it? That's where the problem was. So you were in the wrong place in the first place. That's my personal take on it. So, and sometimes people say, so what are there are alternatives. Nigeria is not I want to speak some English. It's not a two-democracy, two-party state, Abi. We can have multiple political parties. It is for us to be audacious enough to pick a party that resonates with our core values and work using that party to get to the ballot and then call the Nigerian people to vote. Instead, if we decide to go to the establishment because it gives you safety, it's because people say, at least we know that name, we know this name. Well, knowing the name doesn't mean that the people inside are good. It is only because we have allowed them to be in charge and we have not brought up the alternatives. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, but what about the other things that will help you to win elections? There are a lot of things. And we may not go to the point of looking at vote buying and vote selling.
Yes.
But, I mean, you can't remove money.
Yes.
Even to print poster.
Oh, sure, no doubt about it. And where must money come from? It's a very simple thing. It's a principle that they taught us in nursery school with a rhyme. He who pays the piper dictates the tune. It's simple. That if you raise money from money bags, then you will have sold your soul. So what must you do? You must raise money from other people who are forward-thinking like you. The concept is well known across the world. It's crowdfunding. 10,000 people bringing out 10,000 naira is 100 million. That's more than enough for a State House of Assembly election. It's beyond the regulatory requirement. Abi? So 4,000 people bringing 10,000 is 40 million. That's what you need to run your State House of Assembly election. Do you know 4,000 people? Do they have 10,000 naira? The answer is a resounding yes. But they are sitting down, cynical about change, Abi, and doing nothing about it and saying, oh, even if I give you this, my 10,000, you know that it will not make a difference because the people will do this, the people. But then how will you ever get the 40 million? So I'm not naive about the importance of money in anything in life. Even as a business person, to set up a business, you need money. Everything, money is important. But the question is, where did you get the money from? Because you are a slave to wherever you got it from. If you got it from 10,000 people, then you are in service to 10,000 people. Nobody owns your door. Nobody owns your PA. Nobody owns your soul. That's how you really become, what's that very popular saying of 2015, the most popular Time magazine picked it, BBC. Abi, that is how you are a person of all people and a friend of all, I don't remember, but you know what I'm talking about.
I belong to everybody.
I belong to everybody.
I belong to nobody.
That is
how
the
can
way,
you forget it?
That is the way in here to belong to everybody and belong to nobody. But if you did not crowdfund your campaign and you still collected big amounts of money from individuals and heavy voting blocks and heavy people, then there's no way you're not going to belong to somebody. So that's the answer, Ben. You know, there's money. We must raise money. Any politician who tells you that there's no money involved, the person is not a serious person.
Sumba Badma says, I salute Nigeria Info for giving this guest the opportunity to address the present predicament of Nigeria from the right perspective. Kudos to him. I don't know in the world of any country where democracy is being practiced the way our politicians are desecrating democracy, yet some people will still be giving them credit. But this is not to say this doesn't happen elsewhere.
Oh, yes, certainly.
Okay.
But not in the grand scale. Yes.
Okay.
And for how important Nigeria is, 190 million people, we can collapse the whole of West Africa if we go into a religious or ethnic war in this country. So we need to understand. We are very strategic, you know.
Pedro says, why are our leaders not supporting each other to give the masses their best? And Edward, thank you so much for listening in all the way from Rivers State, watching all the way from Rivers State. We appreciate it. And to every other person, let's see. Koate Magnus says, the gale of purported defection is just for political and self-centered ambition. The likes of all those who have defected are defecting for their selfish reasons, best known to them. Guess what? And he says presidential ticket. I don't know about that. But thank you for all the messages that you have shared. How do we begin to let people know that there are alternatives if the alternatives are not in the people's faces? For instance, you know, the two main parties are in the people's faces. That's what the people know. But then we know that there are over 50.
Much more. I don't know the exact number. Yeah.
Right. There are other parties all over the place, but are not in people's faces. So how do we begin to let people understand that?
So that's why
there are alternatives.
And that's why everybody who is seeking political office of the new political extraction, we must work very conscientiously. We must understand that the task is hard, that it's going to be challenging, but it's not impossible. It's about being so you've got to mobilize, you've got to be strategic, you've got to create the publicity, Do you know what I mean? And you have to amplify yourself. It's hard work. It's like saying, I think about when Nigeria, and I always use this example, and I hope that we can all connect to it easily. In 2000, when I started my career as an investment banker, one of the first jobs I had to do was the privatization of Assurance Bank.
Okay.
And I always remember the information memorandum, the document that we used to sell the bank. It listed the top 7 banks in Nigeria. And those banks were First Bank, UBA, Union Bank, Wema Bank, AfriBank, Universal Trust Bank, and Bank of Nigeria, and Bank of the North. But guess what? At that time, those were the ones people knew. They were responsible for 50% of deposits and assets in the banking industry. 7 out of 94 banks.
Wow.
Isn't that what you are describing now?
Yeah.
But what's the story today? Who are the people on that list? A new set of people. Guarantee Trust Bank, isn't it? Zenith Bank. And Diamond Bank, and so on and so forth. Why am I saying this? And I'm not trying to market these banks to anybody, so please don't misunderstand. I'm saying that if people of the new generation, and that's what happened in the 2000s and the 90s in Nigeria, new generation banks came in, and what did they do? They literally kicked ass. Pardon my French. They went and did everything, worked very hard, and worked themselves all the way to the top. So that's the job that is required. So we should not be daunted. When I used to work in my previous job as a banker, my CEO would say, we'll talk about people don't know us. I say, but he says, well, one day they will. I say, today you know me. Yesterday you said you didn't know me. Now you said you didn't, now you know me. So I think that's the same approach for political parties. We have to go out there, the new generation political parties, and do the hard work. But we have to sell a message and an ideology that is better than the status quo. But if some of us start to do the exact same thing, bad mouthing the other people,
which is where the cynicism is.
Exactly.
Which is where
that's
where are the new parties different?
Well,
that's the point.
I can only speak for the one I know, Abi. And for me, it's a very important thing that we must come out with clear ideology. We must speak to the real issues of Nigerians. And I hope that that's what I'm doing right now. We must not be involved in name calling. We should talk about the issues. Nigerians are going through problems, and we should address those problems. We should inspire them, Ben. We should give them hope. We should set an agenda. We should have a vision for where we want to take people to. And leaders are dealers in hope. So we should deal the hope.
If you were to be elected, for instance, to represent the FCT, what would you do differently?
For example, if you ask the question, I will give you the answer. What is the role of a legislator? Let's start from there. Representation. That I will represent you. So, for example, legislators should become ombudsman. You should be the person who sits in the middle. That people have problems with the police. People have problems with different people, with AMAC, with one office of licensing and so on and so forth. Someone is asking you for a bribe. You should be so good. You should be so effective, Ben, that you tell the guy at the licensing office that I am calling the office of Representative Barrow right now to report you. What is your name? Isaku. And the person will start begging you. Because he knows that when that report hits the call center of Representative Barrow, which is going to be on for 24 hours, email, walk-in, letter, and telephone contact center, that you will know that Representative Barrow is going to deal with you. He's going to take that issue to the logical conclusion. That is representation, just as an example. So contact centers, you have to be available to people. People have problems. They are being disenfranchised. They are being cheated. Their rights are being violated by not only the government agencies, but also by their neighbors, by the estates they live in, by AEDC. There are different people that are cheating us at different levels, by the schools where their children go to. All of these people need an ombudsman, somebody who will stand in the middle and speak truth to power, because the person is not conflicted. That is the type of representation that I would like to see in government, and that I would like to bring into places like Abuja and the FCT.
That's my man for service 2019, says Nuhu from Buhari. It's your kind and brain we need in Nigeria's lawmaking business. Young and enough to inspire the youth. I'm in love with your vision and mission, and I love your analogy of the banking system. Let's get involved. All right. Thank you so much, Nuhu. Let's take a few calls. 0946000951.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
Yes, Tony calling from Abuja.
All right, go ahead. Straight to your point, please. 1 minute.
Yes, okay. Now, your guest has spoken well, no doubt, but there is one very important one that he left out, and that has to do with the issue of social security. See,
Of what?
Social security.
Okay. All right, go on.
You see, all this corruption or whatever that we're talking about, you see, once upon a time, I have been positing this idea. All a true House of Assembly member or a senator or whatever, let them introduce social security benefit, and I bet you, at the time, that federal worker, he knows that at the point of retirement, he has something to fall back upon, like you have in the Western world, and that is why you have less corruption in these Western countries. Without social security, we are going nowhere. You see, yes, one can continue to speak English from here to the kingdom. Without social security, let all Nigerians be captured in the social security network, and you see that corruption will be totally eliminated.
Thank you so much for that contribution. Until we make the cost of governance unattractive, president, legislators, etc., salaries equivalent to civil service salaries, people will continue to make it a do-or-die affair. That's Ifeanyi Suleja. You want to address social security?
In fact, you've just served it right up my alley. That's exactly what I believe. For example, let's look at 3 pillars of social security in any society. Health insurance. That's exactly what we need to transform health systems in Nigeria. We need more coverage. We need more people captured in the health management system, in the HMOs, because the more people are inside the HMOs, the more money is available to fund the building and equipping of hospitals. So what must we do? All that money that is being filtered away, all this money that is coming back as proceeds of someone else's loot, that's where it should be going into health insurance. When we talk about pensions in here, for example, on our caller, we should have pensions, micro pensions for the poorest people in Nigeria. And guess what? Today, pensions, I have a background in pensions. We say that employers do 10%, employees 8%. You know what I think? I think that the government, in addition to the 10% that is even a private employer does, that Nigeria Info does for Ben, that Nigeria Info does 10 for Ben, then Ben does 8 for himself, that the government should do another 10 for Ben. That is the type of legislation we should be pushing. Because really, the 18%, when it accumulates over 30 years of your work life, is it adequate to create a replacement for your income? The answer is a resounding no. So we have to even put more into contributory pensions. We need to put more into micro insurance. People are ill. People fall ill. People have accidents, isn't it? But they are in an economic chain where they have no access to insurance. So there's no cover for that disability. There's no cover for that injury. We need to be able to provide micro insurance, and where people who are traders, artisans, get involved in micro pension, micro health, and micro insurance, the government should do what we call counterpart funding. That if a small Merua can come up with 200 naira and contribute into micro pension every month, that the government should put another 200 as a support to him. That is how we are going to build social security, not by creating large schemes that are held by big government people, and before you know it, it becomes another conduit for corruption, but by putting the money into privately managed schemes where the individual gets all the benefits. And we are thankful today that we have a contributory pension scheme, we have a contributory health insurance scheme, and we have contributory insurance schemes, micro insurance. What we need is that the level of income is so low that what must happen is that government should augment what is going into pension, what is going into HMO, and what is going into micro insurance.
Okay, let's squeeze in another call. Hello?
Hello.
Welcome, good morning.
Good morning, this is Worry Victor calling from Kugo.
Straight to your point, Worry.
Yes, I only wanted to say this, according to what the guest in the house just said. Defection, to a lot of extent, does not really say the person that defected is still the same person. That is the truth. But it also passes a message. Like somebody resigned from his ambassadorial position and decided to defect. He is sending a message that I am not in line with what is happening in this government. I don't believe in this. People that are defecting are trying to show their own part of it, how they can show their side that, look, I am not in support of the policies of the government that is causing this and causing that. You know, so defection at times is a kind of expression of what you believe, your opinion about things. You cannot fight the government, you cannot slap the government, but you can defect to show that, look, I was a member of this party, but this is not our plan. What you are doing, you are going outside our plan. So I am not a part of it again.
Thank you so much for that intervention. Hello, welcome.
Hello.
Good morning.
Yeah, Auntie, good afternoon.
Good morning. Straight to your point, please, Fine Country. Go ahead.
My name is Fine Country.
Go on.
I think your guest mentioned that two-party system in a country. And I want to make him to understand that he know that this government is trying to Nigeria one-party system. And again, when he says about defection, he should know that people make their own opinion based on antecedents. Did you know that they are practicing a democratic government?
All right.
That this government that we are practicing does not respect the rule of law. How can will he accept the belief that the mother, that the father married the mother who could not respect the antecedents or that will disobey the dad's idea?
Okay, thank you so much, Fine Country. Commend your guest and his position on Nigerian politics. Sadly, though, Enna says from Galadimawa, it's still largely an idealistic standpoint. Most of the young folk trying to run for presidency and political positions, frankly, have little or no political experience. So when they enter, they are swallowed up by the system. I would advise them to build a movement first. Let young Nigerians like them buy into their agenda and beliefs over a period of time, which would even take years. In that time, they spread awareness and reach even to the grassroots. We're out of time. But what do you make of this?
Yeah, just to say quickly, I never said people shouldn't defect. Feel free to defect. My question is, what is the purpose of defection? If everyone says we are idealistic and they continue being cynical and don't get involved, then how do we actually change things? So to that final caller, that final person who sent in a message, that's my take. That we can continue calling it idealistic, but people are doing things. So join them and do what they are doing. Help them to make it faster. 25 years ago, to mobilize people in Abuja will have taken you impossible. Thank God we've got technology. We've got social media. We've got the internet. Let's use the resources as God has given us today in 2018 to create the Nigerian Renaissance in 2019. We can do it. We will try and we will keep pushing.
Omagbitse Barrow is the director of the Be Better Center. He is the promoter of the Let's Get Involved initiative, and he's also an aspirant for the House of Representatives representing the FCT,
Omagbitse Federal Constituency.
All right, and we'll definitely hear more from him. Thank you so much, Bishop, for making time out to be.
Thank you
Appreciate
for having
it.
us here.
All right, and thank you as well to the silent guest. All right, but let's take a break. We'll bring you the news now. Imo is standing by.
We've got the power. Let's get involved. Let's get involved.